July 24th, 1915. The air is thick with the scent of the Chicago River, a mingling of fresh water and the industrial fumes of the city. The dock buzzes with excitement as families, couples, and workers from the Western Electric Company board the SS Eastland, eager for a day of leisure on the shores of Lake Michigan. The sky is overcast, but no one pays much mind. Laughter rings out, children clutch hands of parents, and the scent of packed lunches wafts through the air. Aboard the Eastland, the atmosphere is electric. Men in crisp suits and straw hats, women in long summer dresses, their lace gloves clutching onto the ship's railings, admire the view of the bustling river. The steamer, capable of holding 2,500 passengers, is already packed to capacity. Many lean over the side, waving to friends, and families still boarding. A band plays lively tunes on the upper deck, a promise of good times ahead. In the engine room, crew members wipe sweat from their brows as they monitor the ship's stability. There's an unease among them. The Eastland has a history of being top-heavy, prone to listing when too many people gather on one side. But orders are orders. The ship must depart soon, and there is no time for hesitation. At 7:28 a.m., the first sign of disaster emerges. A sudden lurch. A shift so slight, most passengers dismiss it as part of the usual sway of the boat. Then another. The steamer tilts ever so slightly to port. A murmur ripples through the crowd, nervous glances exchanged. Some chuckle, brushing it off. A little sway won't ruin their excursion. But below deck, chaos brews. Crew members shout warnings. The ship is taking on an unnatural tilt. In the wheelhouse, the captain grips the railing, his jaw clenched as he barks orders. The Eastland lists further. People shriek as baskets slide across the deck. A waiter stumbles, his tray of glasses crashing to the floor. Children clutch their parents. The band stops playing, a final fatal lurch. With horrifying inevitability, the SS Eastland rolls onto its side, tossing passengers into the cold, murky waters of the Chicago River. Screams tear through the morning air. Hundreds are thrown into the river, their Sunday best now a sodden weight pulling them under. Those inside the ship, men, women, children, are trapped as water floods the interior. Onlookers on the shore stand frozen in disbelief, their minds unable to comprehend the catastrophe unfolding before them. Then, action. Dock workers, bystanders, and emergency responders race to the edge, diving into the river, desperate to save whoever they can. Cries for help mix with the desperate gasps of those struggling to stay afloat. Inside the overturned vessel, the horror is unimaginable. Passengers, who had moments ago been laughing and embracing, now claw at walls, desperate for air. A mother screams for her child. A man pounds against a porthole, his fists bruising, his breath running out. The darkness inside the ship is suffocating, water filling every crevice. The river claims them. Above, a survivor clings to the side of the ship, his fingers numb, his voice hoarse from screaming. He sees a young girl struggling, her curls soaked, her small hands reaching. He lunges for her, grasping her wrist, but she slips through his fingers. She vanishes beneath the waves. His scream joins the others. The rescue efforts are relentless. Boats rush in, ropes are thrown. Bodies are pulled from the water, some gasping, others lifeless. The streets near the river become makeshift morgues as the dead are laid out in neat rows. A sobbing woman cradles the still body of her husband. A father searches desperately for his children, calling their names into the void. By the time the river settles, the toll is unbearable. 844 souls lost in mere minutes. The SS Eastland, now a silent tomb, remains on its side, a chilling reminder of how quickly joy can turn to tragedy. In the aftermath, grief grips the city. Investigations are launched. Questions are asked. How could this have happened? Why was a ship known for instability allowed to carry so many? Answers will come, but they will never bring back those lost. The Eastland will be raised, but the weight of the disaster will linger forever in the hearts of those who survived and those who didn't. The waters of the Chicago River flow on, indifferent, but history will never forget the day the SS Eastland took its final tragic tilt. The morning after the disaster, the Chicago River remains eerily calm, as if mourning the hundreds of lives lost. A heavy silence blankets the city, interrupted only by the lapping of the water against the hull of the capsized Eastland. On the riverbanks, grief-stricken families gather, their faces etched with sorrow as they search for loved ones, hoping for a miracle amid the devastation. Anna Caldwell clutches the wet fabric of her dress, her hands trembling. She had been aboard the Eastland with her husband, Samuel, and their 2 young sons. Now, standing on the dock, she is alone. Her mind refuses to accept what her heart already knows. A rescue worker approaches, his face drawn, his uniform still, damp from the river. He kneels beside her, voice hushed. "Ma'am, we've found another." Anna shakes her head, unable to bear the words that follow. She already knows. Nearby, dock worker James Flannery stands with his hands on his hips, his clothes soaked, his body exhausted from hours of pulling survivors and bodies from the river. His mind replays the moment he saw the ship tip, the sheer terror on the faces of those trapped inside. He had managed to save a handful, but the rest... The damn thing was doomed from the start, he mutters, more to himself than anyone else. A fellow worker nods grimly. They knew it was unstable, knew it was too heavy at the top, and still... His words trail off as he gestures toward the sea of grieving families. As the day drags on, investigators arrive, their sharp gazes taking in every detail. Journalists scramble to capture the horror, their pens scratching across notepads as they document first-hand accounts from survivors. A stern-looking man in a suit, an official from the government, surveys the wreckage. "This will never happen again," he vows, though the words feel hollow against the weight of the tragedy. Amidst the sorrow, acts of quiet heroism emerge. A young boy, no older than 12, walks among the bodies, helping identify the lost. A nurse, her uniform now stained with river silt, gently covers the deceased with sheets, whispering prayers for each one. Survivors, though shattered, hold on to one another, forming an unspoken bond in their shared grief. Night falls, and candles flicker along the river's edge, tiny beacons against the darkness. The Eastland remains where it fell, a grim monument to the lives it claimed. As the city of Chicago mourns, the survivors begin the painful journey of remembering, rebuilding, and somehow moving forward. But for those who lost everything, Time will never wash away the echoes of that fateful morning. The river continues to flow, carrying whispers of the past. And though the world moves on, the ghosts of the SS Eastland will never truly fade.